The build-up to Sonic Frontiers was really unlike any other game in recent memory for me. I was certainly extremely excited when this game was first revealed. It has been the longest gap in time between 3D Sonic games ever, and the latest game since 2017 was Sonic Forces, which has left a very sour taste in my and many other Sonic fans' mouths for 5 years. As more information came out about this game, I never really knew how to feel. One moment the game looks cool, the next it looks like one of those Sonic and Unreal videos. One moment we're getting fantastic animated cutscenes to kick off the very hyped up story of this game. The next, the developers are having a hard time defining what exactly they mean by this game being open zone, not open world. However, I was optimistic. It looked like Sonic Team was taking real risks and trying a new direction for the series. The reception for Frontiers, from what I can tell, seems extremely mixed, with some people who love it and some who hate it. So today, I want to talk about Sonic Frontiers, this polarizing breath of fresh air for the Sonic series. When the idea of an open zone Sonic game was presented, I was instantly intrigued. The idea of giving Sonic a large, sprawling world that he could parkour around, building up speed and exploring new heights sounded exactly like the new direction that this game would need to be a massive hit. And I'm very happy to say that Sonic Frontiers does deliver on that promise. So there are 5 large islands that you can run around in and explore, just like you would in any other open world game. So when the developers were trying to describe Frontiers as an open zone game, I think what they were trying to convey is that the world isn't completely interconnected and seamless like in Breath of the Wild, but instead that the game has multiple smaller, diverse, yet still open-ended biomes to explore, closer to something like Pokemon Legends Arceus or Monster Hunter. This move totally makes sense to me. It has to be way more feasible in terms of development time and resources to create multiple smaller maps for Sonic to run around in, rather than one huge Breath of the Wild style map that would need to be even bigger to account for Sonic's speed. Speaking of Sonic's speed, I gotta say that his controls in the open world feel great. You can boost just like you can in the most recent Boost formula games, but this feels really at home in Frontiers, boosting, running, and jumping around these huge landscapes. There are some things that I would have liked to see tweaked though. Boosting and jumping across chasms never feels like I can build up the speed that I want to, and it makes it difficult to experiment with new ways to get places. The homing attack also feels incredibly slow. There's an insane amount of N lag on it compared to the previous games, and if you boost, then homing attack, you can't boost again, which absolutely kills your momentum. Also, the light dash is now mapped to pressing in the left joystick, which feels disgusting to me, especially during high-speed sections. For the most part, I really like the way that Sonic controls, and it is fun to run across these islands super quickly. Across these islands, there are tons of puzzles that you'll need to complete, which will allow you to fill out your map. These puzzles vary greatly. You could be running to a certain spot or through some rings, which are fun and make sense for a Sonic game. You could be doing things like hitting these balls through rings or doing pathing tests, which are fine, or you might just be running in a hamster wheel or doing a weird Tetris puzzle, which feel out of place and are total pace killers. I wish that there was a greater variety of these puzzles, or that they were replaced with more interesting ones or challenges that were more intuitive with Sonic's moveset. As you complete these puzzles and fill out your map, you will also open up rail systems within the world as well. This is Sonic Frontiers' version of fast travel. Kinda. There is a way to get fast travel in the traditional sense, but only to the Elder and Hermit Cocos. If you want to get anywhere else fast, you have to take the rails, which will initiate small, scripted sequences where you might be hopping from rail to rail or doing a quick platforming section. These sections will sometimes really awkwardly force you into 2D platforming sections with no escape, which sucks because if you step on a stray boost pad, you might have just bought a one-way ticket to a completely separate area of the map. The rail systems aren't incredibly clear either. They twist and wind so much that it's hard to really know where you might end up when you're taking one. It feels like you're on the New York subway. You're riding along, you get off, and where did that just take me? The idea of the rail system is cool and all, but its implementation feels more cumbersome and obstructive to natural progress than it should. Sonic will also encounter tons of enemies and mini-bosses within the overworld as well. These mini-bosses, known as Guardians, are usually pretty fun to fight. Most of them involve the player needing to figure out their specific weak point and exploiting it. They're classic, fun mini-bosses, if not just a bit easy. There are a couple who have certain designs where you'll likely think, oh gee, I wonder how I'm supposed to beat this one. But for the most part, they're fun and interesting, and they work well enough with Sonic's combat system. Oh yeah, Sonic has an all-new combat system in Frontiers. As you defeat enemies in the world, you'll gain skill points that you can use in this skill tree to purchase new moves. Sonic Frontiers' combat system is fine, I guess. It's definitely no Devil May Cry or Yakuza, and it's even more simplistic than the Werehog's combat in Sonic Unleashed. The moves that you unlock are helpful, and by the end of the game, you definitely have more tools at your disposal than you did at the start. But the combat is really simplistic and doesn't really require much mastering from the player. You can even unlock a skill in the skill tree that will just execute combos for you, which is pretty funny to me since most of the combos in this game are just holding a button, but whatever. The skill tree also just feels a bit half-baked to me. There aren't a lot of abilities in here that you can learn, and some of them are really similar to each other. For what it's worth, I think that the combat in this game is fine. It does its job, but man, I would love to see a Sonic game or a Knuckles spin-off or something with some input from RGG Studios with a more deep and interesting combat system. That'd be incredible. Anyways, defeating these large mini-bosses is crucial since they drop portal gears, one of the many collectibles in the game. Open-ended games like Sonic Frontiers need tons of fun and interesting collectibles to find and gather as you explore the world. You've got your typical rings, skill pieces, memory tokens which are used to rescue your friends and progress the story, and the aforementioned portal gears, which are used to open up these portals all across the world. Inside these portals, you'll get vault keys, which are crucial to obtain the Chaos Emeralds. Vault keys can also sometimes be found randomly in the world as well. There are also purple coins, which you can use to play the optional side game. You can also boost Sonic's power and defense stats by collecting these red and blue seeds and taking them to a Hermit Coco. You can also boost your speed or maximum ring count by finding Lost Coco and returning them to the Elder Coco. As a quick side note, the process of leveling up your speed is so unbelievably slow and the menus are so laggy. Please, Sega, just allow me to cash in all of my upgrades at once like I can with the power and defense seeds. I'm begging you. There's a ton of things to find in Sonic Frontiers, and all of them feel like they're worth your time to stop and gather. The value scaling for the collectibles is done really well here, and it makes me want to dash around collecting everything I can as I hunt down the Chaos Emeralds. Getting the Chaos Emeralds on each island is the name of the game here, and to do this, you'll need to gather keys in the new cyberspace levels. The cyberspace levels are quick, classic boost formula gauntlet stages that are all about speed, getting to the end, and getting some red rings along the way. In each stage, there's 4 missions that you can accomplish, each granting a key with an extra 3 keys if you complete all of them. You've got to get to the end, find all the red rings, make it to the end with a certain number of rings, and make it to the end within the S-rank time limit. You don't have to accomplish every mission on one attempt, so you are incentivized to attempt them again and again to optimize your time and your routes. These sorts of levels are all about Sonic speed, which should be a lot of fun, but it pains me to say that the cyberspace levels are not good. Sonic's controls feel awful in these levels. Your boost feels like it barely impacts your speed at all, your homing attack has so much lag that it's usually a bad idea to use it, and Sonic's controls feel so stiff and imprecise as if he's running through a field of Elmer's glue. These levels, and I hate to say this, rival Sonic Forces in just how awful they feel to control. Sonic Frontiers does come out swinging though, hitting you with one of the best cyberspace levels right from the start, level 1-2, which has some fantastic music and a really tight time limit, so if you want to complete all 4 missions, you've got to be perfect. This is awesome. It's super fun to optimize your speed in Sonic games, and it makes you feel like every little input matters. Unfortunately, this level sets a precedent that very few of the other levels meet. There are fun level designs in cyberspace, but they're few and far between. A lot of these stages will see you running in very plain, boring levels with questionable level design. Like, who thought that this Donkey Kong blasting out of barrels level design would be fun in a Sonic game? On top of these issues, the missions after 1-2 are a cakewalk. Very few levels in the rest of the game require even close to that same level of optimization to S-rank. I found myself first trying the S-rank time on a lot of these missions when I played them for the first time, which was wild to me considering how much I felt like I was fighting with the controls the whole time. The red rings are also so easy to get to, it's almost a little insulting. Remember how in games like Sonic Generations, the red rings were often found on those higher paths that required a lot of momentum and timing to get up to? In Frontiers, the red rings are almost always just sitting on the normal path and require 0 exploration to find. Take a look at this example from 2-6. I found this little switch behind these boxes here that opened up a light ring path that wrapped around the tower that I was on. So of course I think, oh, there's gotta be a red ring up here. I light dash around the tower, bounce up to the top, and I'm greeted with the realization that there was absolutely nothing up here. This was just a slower detour to the main path, and all I did was waste my time. So I cut my losses and continued the level just to find that the red ring was just sitting on the rail on the path forward just waiting to be picked up. Moments like this happen all the time in these levels. There are so many red rings that are just on the normal path to get them. For some of them, you may not need to do anything to get them. A scripted portion of the level may just hand it to you and you'll get it for doing nothing. The cyberspace levels are just not fun to me at all. The level themes aren't even unique. They recycle 4 different aesthetics at random from past Sonic games, and this makes it really hard to even fully remember which level is which. I know that there's a lore reason that these levels use these themes since they're taking place in Sonic's memory, but to me they feel really cheap. Even if we got like 2 or 3 additional level themes that weren't just Green Hill or Chemical Plant Zone that we've seen countless times before, it would have done wonders to make these levels not feel so samey. The cyberspace levels are bursting at their seams with wasted potential. If Sonic controlled better, if the level designs and themes were more memorable, if the missions were more challenging, these would have been way more fun and a nice change of pace from the open world, but as they are, I found myself wanting to skip them as much as I could. There is another way to get vault keys though. There's a fishing spot on each island that will take you to a fishing minigame with Big the Cat, where you can spend the purple coins to just chill out and catch some fish. The minigame itself is incredibly easy. It's basically just a quick time event, but this is a great way to get some collectibles. You can purchase all kinds of stuff with the tokens that you get from catching fish, from egg memos that give a bit more lore to the story, to vault keys, to memory tokens. If you aren't a big explorer but you are a big fisher, this is likely a great option for you. I like this minigame. I can't help but feel like this would have been a great place for some optional content though, like cosmetics or different music tracks or something. I like the minigame as it stands, but adding those little cosmetics as an incentive to fish more would have been a nice touch. Once you've collected all of the Chaos Emeralds, it's time to go fight the Titan.
I'm hanging on to the other side. I won't give up till the end of me.
These supersonic fights with Titans are super grandiose in spectacle, starting with you climbing the beast like you're in Shadow of the Colossus, then transforming into supersonic for a fast-paced battle where you just wail on the enemy. These fights aren't particularly hard. They showcase the simplicity of the combat system in full display, but the spectacle is certainly fun. The music, the grandiose stakes, and the flashy attacks filled me with a nostalgia as somebody who loves the overly dramatic side of Sonic games. These fights are fun and they don't overstay their welcome. I wish that they were more challenging, but I really enjoyed them for what they are. So, once you defeat the first Titan, Sonic blasts off to the next island and is immediately tasked with doing pretty much the same thing as he did on the first island. This island is very distinct aesthetically, and bantering with Knuckles is really fun to watch, but you will be doing pretty much the same thing that you did on the first island on the second island. Then you'll do it again on the third island. Sonic Frontiers is a very fun game, but it runs out of steam a little bit too quickly. The first 2 islands are easily my favorites. You've got huge, vast open spaces to explore and a lot of collectibles to find. You can get around really easily and make mental notes of places that you may want to check out later. Then you get to the third island, which is way less walkable and requires you to rely on the rail system or these birds a lot more, which involves a lot of meandering and can get really tedious. There's a lot more pace breakers in the late game as well. As you collect memory tokens and progress the story, you may have to do little minigames too. Some of them are okay, and some of them are cutting the grass or quite possibly the worst pinball section in a Sonic game. And that's saying something. The latter half of Sonic Frontiers feels like it tries to stuff a lot more story and a lot more pace-breaking minigames into the mix, which makes exploring and finding the memory tokens and vault keys more of a chore than they were in the earlier parts of the game. Once I got to the final island, I had given up on exploring and just decided to farm the fishing minigame for the collectibles I needed, which is definitely not ideal in a game all about exploration. I just wish Sonic Frontiers was less focused on stuffing the late game with a lot of minigames that are mandatory for the plot and not super fun, and was more focused on scaling the worlds and making each island more interesting than the last. One of the most hyped up parts of Sonic Frontiers was its story. We were kept in the dark up until release regarding the actual plot of the game, and I definitely think that that was for the best. While Sonic Frontiers may not be my favorite story in the series, I do think that it is good. It takes itself much more seriously than a lot of other Sonic games, and it does have genuinely great, heartfelt moments between Sonic and his friends. The interactions between Sonic and Amy, Tails, and Knuckles were really great, and they all had their own self-contained arcs that were compelling and interesting to watch. The main overarching story was decent. This game sets up a lot of mystery boxes, and some of them are answered in interesting ways, but some of them were absolutely squandered. Now, just as a warning, I'm about to head into spoiler territory, so if you haven't played the game yet, I'd highly recommend skipping to the timestamp noted below so you can avoid hearing any spoilers. Are we cool? Okay, so I liked Sage as a villain for the most part. She seems genuinely concerned for Sonic and Eggman, and seeing her admire Sonic's determination to save his friends, despite his inevitable fate, is really cool. On the final island of the game, Sage dumps a lot of exposition on us about the war that the Ancients have been waging against something, and the purpose of cyberspace. This information just kinda comes out of nowhere and gets dumped on you all at once, completely rushing the pacing and making these mysteries feel cheap and less satisfying to uncover. Some of the mysteries, like what would happen to Sonic if he gets corrupted by the cyber energy, get completely resolved in a matter of minutes, which feels so anticlimactic and makes some of these mystery boxes feel like they went nowhere. You'll defeat the final Titan, which was a pretty decent fight, albeit really easy, but then if you're playing on hard, you can unlock the true final ending, where you and Sage fight the End, the world-ending entity that the Ancients perish trying to stop. This final boss has to be insane, right? A supersonic fight with a world-ending entity with a giant Titan fighting alongside? Oh. It's just Ikaruga. This final boss sucks. Not only are you fighting against an ambiguous, unremarkable entity that you have virtually no attachment to by this point in the game, but this final boss also completely throws away all of the progress that you made with Sonic throughout the course of the game. All of those stat upgrades, the new combat moves, the cinematic fights with the Titans, all of that is completely thrown out the window for an Ikaruga-style bullet hell fight that just feels wrong. Now look, don't get me wrong, I love Ikaruga, and you have done some unlocking minigames using this gameplay style earlier in the game, but they were just that, minigames. Using this as the final battle feels like the game does not understand what has made Sonic Frontiers fun up until this point, and it sucks. The ending to Sonic Frontiers was really underwhelming. I was hoping for a final evolution of the supersonic battles, a cinematic, dramatic final showdown with a world-ending entity, but instead we got a final battle that completely misses the point. Graphically, Sonic Frontiers looks pretty good. I'm playing this on a PS5 and it does run at a mostly solid 60 frames per second and looks really nice. It is worth noting that if you play this game on PS4, Xbox One, or definitely on Switch, you're going to be locked to 30 FPS, and that isn't even really stable on Switch. If you have a PS5, Xbox Series X, or a PC that can run it, I'd absolutely suggest going with those versions. Now, let us address the elephant in the room. Yeah, there's a ton of pop-in, and yeah, it does look bad. I really wish that this wasn't an issue on current-gen hardware, as it can get really distracting and can be pretty tough to know where certain rails may take you unless if you're already on that rail system over a bottomless pit. While I'm complaining about aesthetics, I do wish that the island's theming was more memorable. I get it, with these huge sprawling islands that doesn't realistically leave a lot of room for clever theming, like a smaller level might, but I just wish that we could have gotten more clever themes than the grass island, the sand island, the volcano island, the grass island, the grass island. These islands blend together for me because they look nearly identical. I also wish that there were more memorable set pieces on these maps as well. That would have gone a long way to make navigation on the map a lot more intuitive and fun than it already is. Overall though, this game looks pretty good, and I do think that with some tweaking, the environments could pop even more than they already do. The music is killer too. There's very few tracks here that I thought weren't enjoyable or were downright bad. I'm not even a big fan of punk music personally, but the boss theme still really got me. There's a lot to like about the music, although I totally understand that it won't be for everyone. I'm happy to say that I enjoyed my time with Sonic Frontiers. It may seem like I was pretty critical throughout this video, and while I do have my qualms and critiques with this game, I still had a lot of fun with it and I enjoyed it until the very end. Frontiers is a very decidedly unique game, and I really enjoyed a lot of the new ideas that it brought to the table. If you're a Sonic fan and you were on the fence about Frontiers, I'd say that it's absolutely worth your time. If you aren't a Sonic fan, I'm not sure if this game would be the best place to start, at least at full price. You might want to wait for a price drop before diving in, and then I would say that it's worth checking out. Sonic Frontiers was some of the most fun I've had with a 3D Sonic game in years. It's not perfect, it's rough around its edges, but I have a lot of respect for the innovations and new ideas that it brings to the table as a breath of fresh air into the series. I'm happy to say that I am very excited about the future of Sonic. Thanks so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.